And good afternoon. My name is Marcus Hanscom. I work in graduate admissions here at the University of New Haven. And thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us to learn a little bit more about the forensic science program that we offer here at the University of New Haven. We're very proud of the program. We're one of the oldest in the country. It was started by the famous Dr. Henry Lee, who is regarded as one of the leading forensic investigators in the world. He started the program back in the late 70s was basically a closet-sized office here on the campus, and has now turned into a major program for us with alumni around the world in major federal, state, and local police and law enforcement agencies, and of course crime labs and others that we'll get into about some of the job prospects and things later on as well. But we're very proud of the program, and we hope that you'll see as we go along that we've grown a lot from just that closet back in the day to now having a brand new building just a couple of years old, the Henry Lee Institute of Forensic Science here on the campus, and some excellent bachelor's and master's programs in forensic science. So if you have any questions, you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen there is a questions box, so please feel free to enter them as we go along. And joining me on the call is Layla Phillips. She's one of our admissions counselors here in the Graduate Admissions Office, and she actually works directly with all of our students in the Lee College, which includes the forensic science program. And she will be helping you through the application process and answering any questions that you have, or setting up a campus visit if you'd like to do that as you go through the process if you choose to apply. So, and we certainly hope that you would do that. But you can contact Layla with any questions, and we'll provide her information as well as mine at the end of the session. So just a little bit about the program. The program is divided into three very distinct tracks. The two primary programs that we have our largest group of students in are the Criminalistics program and the Advanced Investigation track. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about those. We also offer a Fire Science track, which is more geared towards arson investigation. So it's a little bit more specialized than the other two. Criminalistics is much more lab intensive, whereas Advanced Investigation is more hands-on at the crime scene. And you'll see on your screen there's a photo of Dr. Lee in the upper right-hand corner. You will be hearing a lot about him throughout the course of the next 45 minutes or so. And you've probably seen his television show at some point or another on Court TV called Trace Evidence. He and Dr. Tim Palmback, our program chair, had that show for quite some time. And you can watch all those episodes actually in a special theater in the Lee Institute here on campus, so it's kind of neat. But you, of course, can catch back episodes on Court TV. So the program itself is currently it's 40 credits. We're expanding that to 42 credits to accompany our new thesis requirements, particularly for our criminalistic students. We are accelerated in that we offer our classes on a trimester schedule, so that kind of makes us unique. You don't have the traditional semester schedule that you have at many schools, so the trimester schedule gives you 3 full terms in during one academic year, and that allows you to get your coursework done a little bit more quickly, so you can get out into the job force, so you're not spending a lot of time in graduate school and getting out to getting a full-time career. And that trimester schedule, we have program starts in September. Well, the program itself, you can begin in September only. That's the only term that we will admit for. But you will have courses starting in September, January, and April. So essentially the academic year runs from the beginning of September until the very first couple of days of July. And then we do have a brief break around the holidays for you and a weekend break in between the winter and spring term. So it is a little bit more condensed. If you're currently an undergraduate student or recently have attended undergraduate studies, you're probably familiar with a much longer winter break. We don't have that available for our graduate students because it is a trimester schedule. So, but it does get you done a little bit more quickly. A full-time student in the program can get the program done in 5 trimesters. What that means for you is basically if you were to start in September of this coming year, you would go for the full academic year, the 13-14 academic year, and then you would complete your studies in the beginning of April of 15. So about a year and 7 months or so. So just about a year and a half to complete the program. It's relatively quick. You would be doing that on a 9 credit per trimester schedule. 9 credits basically means three courses for you. Your credits may vary here and there because you will have lab courses, so occasionally there's an extra credit thrown in there for intensive lab study, particularly for criminalistic students. If you're a part-time student, we have a smaller number of part-time students in the program. It's largely full-time, but that by no means should discourage you from applying if you're going to be a part-time student. But we do have some students in the program that do that while they're working either part-time or full-time basis, and they can complete the program generally within 5 years. 5 years is kind of our maximum in terms of how we'd like our students to complete their degrees with us, even on a part-time basis. But generally, most of the students in the program are full-time. So I mentioned the 3 courses per trimester. You can take some additional coursework if you'd like. Some students choose to take an elective or an additional lab, for instance, or maybe an independent study or research project. So it depends on what you choose to do with your studies and what your interests are in. There are certainly a lot of electives you'll see as we get further on in the presentation here about different things that you could specialize in while you're here. And as long as you work with your advisor, you can take an additional course or two depending on what your interests are. You have to be aware that there is a limit based on your financial aid. There is if you're getting some sort of financial aid, there is a cap on the amount of aid you can take in a given year, and that's based on not only your academics but your anticipated cost of living while you're here, especially if you're relocating. This particular program draws students from across the country, so we've had students from Hawaii and Alaska in the program. We regularly have students from Texas, California, the Midwest, particularly Iowa and Nebraska, the Chicago area. So we have folks from all over the country that join us for the program. So many of you are relocating and need to have housing factored into your costs of attending the university. So all of those costs are factored into a larger cost of attendance that financial aid would work with you on. So it's just something to keep in mind as if you were to add another course or two. If you're going to be a part-time student, you're going to complete 1 to 2 courses at a time, and that's at your schedule and as your convenience. So you'd work with the advisor to make sure that you're following a good course schedule, to make sure that you're on task, to make sure that you're meeting the prerequisites for any subsequent classes later in the program. Now I'll talk to you a little bit about each of the tracks. Criminalistics, as I mentioned, is primarily you're working in a laboratory. So students that go into criminalistics are not the folks that are, and certainly CSI and those types of television shows are not an accurate portrayal of forensic science. We always laugh at the students that want to come in and they say, I want to be on CSI, and they don't realize that it takes longer than an hour to solve a crime. And you also, and generally, aren't working in these kind of Mission Impossible type technology facilities and running out in the field and doing all this crime lab or crime scene work. So it depends on which track that you're looking at. But the students that go into criminalistics are very heavy science-oriented students. They're students that are going to be working in a laboratory, largely in a more isolated environment. These photos that you see on the screen are pretty indicative of the types of work that you'll be doing, where you're processing evidence, you're processing hair samples or DNA and working through machines to process each of those samples. So that's more of an isolated environment. So when you think of crime scene investigation, that's generally not what the criminalistic students are doing. These students are working in either federal labs or state police labs or even private laboratories where they're processing evidence and things from crime scenes. Now, if you're interested in the criminalistics program, this is a very strict set of requirements coming into this program. Because it is so academically rigorous, you must be prepared to get into the program. We want to make sure that you're successful, and that not only do you graduate, but you graduate and find a successful career in forensic science. So you must have an undergraduate degree in a scientific discipline. So they're looking for things like biotechnology, biology, chemistry, so really hard sciences with a lot of laboratory coursework. You generally have to have a GPA of 3.5 or higher, and you must take the GREs. Now you'll notice our other tracks within forensic science do not require the GRE. This track, however, does require that you take the GRE. It's a very analytical and scientific track within the program. We want to make sure that you're adequately prepared. If you don't have a major in a natural or physical science like the chemistry or biology tracks, you must have significant coursework in sciences. For instance, if you have a bachelor's degree in forensic science, many forensic science programs, some years ago did not have the breadth and depth of sciences that were necessary to be successful in this program. That's slowly changing. There are some forensic science programs now that are much more science intensive. So now those programs are kind of catching up to the science necessity of getting into the programs. We are admitting more students with an undergraduate degree in forensic science. But generally, if you're coming with a degree other than a hard science background, you have to have significant science coursework to be considered for the program. I do see there's a question about how much the GRE scores weigh in the admission process. For criminalistic students, they're very important. I'd say equally between the grade point average and the GREs, so it is something that you definitely want to take seriously. It's not something you just take it and submit the score, and as long as you took it, that's okay. We're looking for a solid score on the GRE as well as that grade point average of at least a 3.5 or above. There is some wiggle room there if you excel on the GRE, for instance, and have a 3.4. We're not going to take you out of the pool because of that. So make sure that you're within those requirements, but definitely focus on doing well on the GRE because that's very important for admission into this program. And I'll also note that our students in the Forensic Science program, regardless of track, are admitted from an admissions committee. It's a little bit different than some of our other programs where we might have a couple of faculty members that are responsible for decisions. The admissions committee in Forensic Science takes, because we have a deadline as well, and this is why we have the deadline, we have all of our applications come in. It's a highly competitive program, so they'll take a whole group of applications and review them together. And when they're looking at, generally for criminalistic students, we're taking between 12 and 14 seats a year total for criminalistic students. So if we're only looking at 12 to 14 students and we have, say, 50 to 100 applications or more, when they're sitting down as a committee, they're going to take all of the applications that they have and they're going to weed them down into that 12 to 14 students. So you want to make sure that you're definitely academically qualified, and the more that you can do to stand out in your application is going to help you a lot in that process. It also means that in terms of getting an admission decision, if you've already applied for this fall, you may be waiting a little bit for a decision because they are not reviewing as we send them necessarily. Sometimes they do, but generally the committee will meet at certain defined intervals during the admission process, and they'll look at all the applications that they've had to date and then make a decision on those. So it's not like we're just sending your application file over and we're getting a decision right away. It's based on that committee decision. So please bear with us if you're waiting for a little bit of a score, and you can certainly keep in touch with us and talk to Layla or talk to any one of us in the office, and we can give you an updated status on any application materials you have or any decision that you're waiting on. Now in the criminalistics, this is a little bit of an overview of what you're looking at in terms of curriculum in the criminalistics program. There's a 33 credit core, and that's a very heavy core. In terms of our master's programs, many of our programs, they have a core of, say, 20 to 25. 33 credits is very strict in terms of the courses that you have to take in the program. And this ensures that we're graduating high-quality applicants, high-quality employable students. And our students are, as I mentioned before, employed across the country and the world in top positions. And we wouldn't be able to do that if we weren't turning out high-quality graduates. So we ensure that we have a really strong curriculum for you. You're going to work hard here. You have to be academically prepared, as I mentioned, but you're going to get such a high-quality program that getting placed into a job will not be difficult for you because we have a very good reputation for turning out high-quality graduates. So you're getting that 33 credits of core coursework, and if you look at the list of courses there, you have a lot of science-heavy, lab-heavy courses. Survey of Forensic Science is the introductory course that's kind of an overview that gets you into it. And then you've got the Advanced Criminalistics 1 and 2, both with the biology and the chemistry slants. Both of them have required laboratories, so those are very heavy science lab-intensive courses. You'll also be doing work in DNA and physical methods. Physical methods in the processing within the laboratory, so again, that's laboratory heavy coursework. Expert witnessing, which if you look at some of my favorite things that I've read about Dr. Lee and some of his videos and things that I've watched of him over time, has been his expert testimony in major cases. You've probably seen him as the lead prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson trial, and he's been involved with the John Benet Ramsey case and Scott Peterson and all the major cases that you can think of over the past 10, 20, 50, 30 years he's been involved with. So you're going to be going into how you can take what you're learning in the laboratory and processing it in a way that you're giving it, if you had to give witness testimony, how you can give that in a way that is understandable to a jury, for instance. So you'd be going through that. You're also in the criminalistics program now required to do a thesis, so you have to do significant research in the program. It's shown that our students are more successful in getting placed for jobs and being successful in the laboratories if they have significant research experience. So that's very very important that you have that piece. So we made sure that that was included as a required part of our curriculum, and that's certainly required for accreditation purposes as well. I see there's a quick question here. Does every student who applies get a response from the school whether they're accepted or not? Yes, absolutely. You will get a decision from us whether you're accepted or denied for the program. We also have a wait list, so because of the program being so selective, we will have some students that we place on a wait list that gives you a little bit of possibility later on in the admission process that we may be able to take you depending on how many seats are still available. So if you're on the wait list, definitely keep your eyes open for that. Now within Criminalistics, I mentioned you have the 33 credit core. Now in addition to that, you have restricted electives that you need to fulfill those 7 to 9 additional credits. In some cases, some of our students will take additional credits. There'd be extra credits above and beyond the program because they want to take some of these courses that are specialized in areas like, for instance, students that want to do more in fingerprinting, for instance, or want to do forensic photography. Some students will do an independent study. So you have some flexibility in kind of customizing the latter part of your program. We also have some very cutting-edge courses, things like capillary electrophoresis, drug chemistry, forensic microscopy. These are all cutting-edge, top technology type courses, things that you're going to find in the field that's going to separate you from the rest because you've been exposed to this coursework and also some of the leading technology that some federal offices even don't have access to. So you're going to be able to have great cutting-edge access to the latest technology and faculty and knowledge there is in forensic science. And we really pride ourselves on the experience of our faculty as well, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as we go forward. Now, the Advanced Investigation program is a little bit different from the Criminalistics track, as I mentioned. Advanced Investigation students are generally more focused on they want to work on the crime scene. Many of them become police officers, for instance, and then they become investigators through their police capacities. They're investigating at crime scenes. They're working in the criminal justice system. A lot of students will work for agencies like the FBI, the Secret Service, Department of Defense, doing investigative type work through them. Some students have gone on to careers in things like working with the IRS, for instance, doing forensic accounting. So we've seen some students doing that. We are actually starting a program of forensic accounting soon. So that's another thing to be aware of. But forensic science is now applicable to a far greater reach of careers beyond just investigative services. But generally the students that come into the program are looking to get into the investigative services, so that's where the primary focus of the program is. As I mentioned, many students go into police departments, largely at the state and federal level. We have a lot of state police students, a lot with state police labs. I know a number of our graduates are working for Massachusetts State Police. We have some in the new Twin Cities Crime Lab out in Minneapolis. We have some students placed in Arizona. I believe it's in the Phoenix Crime Lab. So there's a lot of students that are working in crime lab capacities that are affiliated with state police units. And others are still working for crime scene units, the investigative units. For instance, we have students that intern with the investigative unit of the New Haven City Police. So there's a lot of opportunity for you there for a more practical internship level as well because of all of our connections with our alumni and with our faculty certainly as well. Now, coming into the Advanced Investigation program is a little less strict than the Criminalistics program. We have many different majors accepted from across the board, but you have to have at least 1 year of science with a laboratory in your undergraduate coursework. So you do have to have a bit of exposure to lab sciences in your undergraduate, which many students do. And we're looking for students that have at least a 3.0 or above generally. We're not requiring that you take the GRE, but if you were to fall below the 3.0 grade point average, it wouldn't hurt to take the GRE as an additional credential to help your application. Certainly taking that seriously and getting a good score will help you a lot. Now, it's not suitable if you choose to go, if you want to become a lab technician or be processing evidence in a lab, this will not get you there. So to be an advanced investigation student and want to go into a lab, it's the wrong way to go. Now, if you were to get into this program, you cannot then start taking courses in advanced investigation and then say, I want to switch to criminalistics. We do not allow students to jump backward into that program. We have had students in the past that go from criminalistics into advanced investigation. That's generally a more acceptable alternative if that were to happen, if you were to change your mind, for instance, once you're in the program. But you cannot switch from advanced investigation into the criminalistics track, primarily because the tracks are so widely different for one, but because they're so different in terms of the lab component and the requirements getting in, it's a very strict policy within the program that you cannot do that. There is a question about how many students are generally accepted for the advanced investigation program. We generally take between 30 and 40 students into that program total in terms of enrollment. So we actually have 30 to 40 seats for students in that program annually. And like I mentioned, there's about 12 to 14 seats for criminalistics, so much different, a lot more selective than the advanced investigation. Now, the number of students admitted to the program, it certainly depends based on the number of applications we get. The average acceptance rate for that program is generally around 70%, 60 to 70%, because the students coming in there are also very academically qualified. It's just not a general program that just anybody applies for. So we get some very high quality candidates, but generally we're accepting about 65 to 70% of students into advanced investigation, and that's a much slimmer number for our criminalistics students. So generally it's a little bit more wide open for the AI students. Now, based on what we want you to obtain in terms of outcomes, because this is very important for you as a prospective graduate student, we want you to get a job, obviously. We want you to come here and, you're making a significant investment in graduate school, whether it be here at the university or elsewhere, and we want to make sure that you are getting the types of outcomes that are necessary to land you that job once you graduate. So we built the curriculum strictly to make sure that we're covering all your bases if you want to become an investigator in the field. So you're going to be doing modern investigative techniques. We say modern because modern is very fitting with the faculty that we have in the program. Our faculty are practicing in the field, or they've recently worked in the field, or they've worked in the labs, for instance. So these people are bringing real experience that are modern, true techniques that are being used at the crime scene. And you're applying them in the classroom, you're applying them in our crime scene training facilities, and you're applying them in internships if you choose to do that as an advanced investigation student. So we really, when we say modern, it's not just a flashy word. We want to make sure that you're getting the most true experience in your program to make you marketable once you graduate. Then you're looking at advanced crime scene investigation. You'll see Peter Massey is one of our faculty. I'll talk to you about him in a little bit about what he does he actually brings in on there's a course that you'll take throughout the trimester, and then you'll spend a whole Saturday processing a real crime scene. Of course, real being something that we staged on the campus, but we use pig's blood that you'll be actually doing DNA extraction from. You'll be doing footprint analysis. You'll be doing forensic photography. We are known for experiential education at the university, and this program is one of our premier programs in terms of that mission, because you're getting hands-on experience in real facilities, you're practicing in internships. We want to make sure that you have marketable skills that you've learned so you don't go out there and people have to train you. We want to make sure that you're getting the best education here so that when you graduate, they know that when they're hiring a forensic science graduate from the University of New Haven, they know that they're hiring somebody that's going to be a great employee for what they're doing. They need a great investigator. You'll also do things like pattern recognition. You've probably seen Dr. Lee if you've watched any of his videos and things. He loves to do pattern recognition. I always enjoy watching some of his blood splatter analysis because he'll take red paint and splash it onto a white background and show how different types of trauma will impact blood splatter analysis. So it's very interesting type work. So you'll be doing that. You'll see a little bit in the photo there about the pattern recognition based on blood splatter on how somebody might have been struck or if there was a bullet involved. There's a lot of different things that you'll be looking at related to that. You'll also be looking at some of the latest crime scene technology, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a little while. Of course, some forensic techniques, law and evidence. You'll be talking about criminal procedure in the legal system and being in the courts. So it's all very applicable to what you'll be doing in a wide variety of jobs and careers in forensic science or criminal justice, for that matter. So now, if you remember, I was talking about the criminalistics program core credits. There were 33 core credits in the criminalistics program. Now, advanced investigation has only 24 core classes. So what that means is you have a little bit more flexibility in advanced investigation to do kind of customize your degree a little bit. And you can take some electives in other areas and things, so you can really focus on what you think is going to be something that you're interested in for your career. So it's a lot more customizable. So you do the advanced investigation courses. Those are the hands-on crime scene work. You will be taking some crim courses that are laboratory oriented. So you do have some lab exposure in the advanced investigation, but not nearly to the degree of the criminalistics students. You're also taking a course in physical analysis. That's kind of unique to the AI track. So you're analyzing evidence as it would be appearing at the crime scene versus what the criminalistic student would be taking and processing as evidence with samples and using technology to process DNA and hair samples and things in the laboratory. You also have a required capstone experience in this program. And it's a little bit different from crim. The criminalistic students are doing the thesis. Here you're doing the internship or a research project, the option of either one. Many students will opt for the internships because it's practical experience that you're getting out there in the field, and we have a lot of great contacts for you. And you'll see if you visit the campus, we have a jobs board in the forensic science department that's loaded with internships and job opportunities, because we have employers and state officials and federal departments contacting our department with a variety of positions, because they know that our graduates are good. They know that our students are good, productive interns, and they know they make great employees once they graduate because they're well prepared. So you'll find a lot of those opportunities will land in your lap as long as you're willing to apply your own time and effort into getting some of those positions. But there's a lot of great opportunities for you just because of the prestige of the program. Now, depending on what you have as a background, either in science and things or the courses that you've taken, you can take some advanced electives in forensic science. You see some of them listed here. Toxicology, microscopy, advanced fingerprinting. We have some great fingerprinting technology here on the campus. Expert witnessing. That was a course that you saw in the core program of the criminalistics. So you can take some of those courses as electives for this. There's also some advanced coursework in forensic photography, so not just that intro class and getting you out there, but these are special applications. We also do things like forensic engineering, so you have a lot of flexibility there. We also have one of the oldest programs in the country in criminal justice. We were the first to implement a national security program here just following 9/11. So we have a lot of courses in other areas. We're known for our public safety, and we have a lot of options for you to take courses in these other areas. We also have one of the few master's programs in the country in fire science. And we have these state-of-the-art burn labs on the campus. And for those of you who like fire and things, it's kind of fun because they bring these rooms out, and they're on wheels, and they'll set them on fire. And then after they do that, students will analyze them in their classes, doing arson investigation and finding out accelerants and looking at the types of materials used and if there were chemicals used as accelerants. And looking at causes of fires and things, cigarettes versus electrical fire, all of that are things that you could take. You could take courses in all of those. And similarly, the fire science track in the forensic science program would have you doing a series of core courses that are mirroring what you do in the advanced investigation program. But you'd also be doing that arson investigation piece as a required core in that track. Now, if you wanted to go even further, you could take courses in psychology, for instance. We have a forensic psychology concentration in both the CJ and our community psychology programs. So we have some great courses in forensic psychology. You could also take some biology or chemistry courses in our core programs there. We also offer language courses. Arabic is a really popular one in public safety, particularly with the growth of terrorism and things, so a lot of our students are taking that. We also, as I mentioned, national security and, of course, CJ. So you have a lot of different options here to kind of customize your studies and take some electives in other areas that are truly applicable to what you'll be doing in your career in forensic science. Now, the capstone experience I talked to you a little bit about with advanced investigation. You see there's a couple of students here that were working in laboratories. One was working at the police department locally. I remember having, there are students that have worked on emergency preparedness plans in New Haven. We've had a number of students work for investigative units for the police. We have placed students in FBI and Secret Service type internship placements. They're highly competitive. They are difficult to get, but a lot of our students we have placed students in those positions around the country. We recently had a CJ student work for the FBI in San Diego. So you have some opportunities to get out there. You have to certainly apply yourself and put some effort into getting those positions, but we have landed some very coveted internships. We also have a lot of opportunity for you to do research projects. We had an excellent presentation by a student in the fire science track in forensic science last year who was talking about the accelerants of fire in terms of arson and the temperatures at which steel would melt with arson investigation, and how they could use melted steel and what was left of the chemical breakdown of the steel to determine the cause of the fire. And so it was really interesting investigative work and research that she had done with that, and she's still continuing with that research this year. So it's that type of research that you have the opportunity to do if you choose to do so. And there's some very applicable uses for that research that sometimes our students have worked with fire insurance companies, for instance, and used some of that research to inform their policies. So there's a lot of things that you can really do to enhance what you're learning. Now, if you chose to do the internship in the Advanced Investigation program, it's 160 hours. Sounds kind of daunting right off the bat, but if you were to take that over the course of a 13-week trimester, 160 hours isn't too bad. You have to have an approved location. We're not requiring that you stay in New Haven or stay within the state of Connecticut. Like I said, we've placed students in California, we've placed students in Texas and Colorado. If you want to go home, wherever your home is, and do an internship over the summer period, you're certainly welcome to do that. And once you have that position lined up, you just have to get it approved by the department. And as long as it's related to what you're doing, they're very open to having you be placed where you feel comfortable. And we have students, as I mentioned, crime scene units and police departments. Some students have worked with the sex offender registry, cold case units. We actually have a cold case center here on the campus, so that's very relevant because you're doing internship work and complementing that with work you're doing here in the classroom. We've had people in the Chief State's Attorney's Office, the CIA, the NCIS, and as I mentioned, the FBI as well. So there's a lot of different places that you can intern with if you choose to do that. And that, of course, gets you a foot in the door for many of these places. So certainly it's something to consider. Now, if you're doing the criminalistics track, that thesis I mentioned, you have to do a 6-credit thesis. So the thesis requires not only the coursework, but there's a seminar accompanying it. So there is some kind of lecture-based workshops based around your thesis in terms of preparing your research and getting your thesis approved. And you would work alongside with one of our faculty members. So many students coming into forensic science are interested in archaeology. While we don't have a program in archaeology, we have a number of faculty that are interested and have done research in archaeological and ancient relics. So you have a lot of opportunities to work in something that's more specialized and an interest to you. And this list here is not necessarily to limit what you want. If there's something else that you'd like to do, you certainly are welcome to pitch that to the faculty. And chances are there's a faculty member that's done something with it because we have so many faculty highly involved in the field. So you can do crime scene processing methods, DNA analysis, drugs and toxicology. Instrumental analysis is actually, you have a lot of great opportunities to do that here because we have virtually all the major technology that you're going to find out there and some of the most cutting-edge technology that in our Lee Institute, for instance, we have police departments that come to the university and rent the equipment because they don't have access to it on their own. So we have equipment that many departments don't have access to that are coming to us to borrow, and yet our students have access to it right in the classroom. So we want to make sure that you have the most cutting-edge technology at your fingertips, and that gives you some opportunities to really do some top-notch, cutting-edge research while you're in the program. Now, we also have a couple of special thesis opportunities if you wanted to. If you took the Capillary electrophoresis course here on the campus, you have the possibility you can kind of pair that with going to the University of Verona in Italy. We have a partnership with them. And you can take coursework there that is applicable to your master's here. And then if you wanted to, there is a PhD offering at the University of Verona that many of our students have chosen to go on to. We also have a partnership with the University of Split in Croatia, and they specialize more in war remains and DNA analysis. So if you wanted to do thesis work in DNA or war remains in a fantastic country, you have a lot of opportunities to do that as well. Now, we have on the campus, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about these, but we have a graduate work program. And this is what helps make your studies very affordable for you while you're here. The graduate work program offers three types of positions. I'll talk now about the teaching assistantships, and then we'll get into the others later. But we have administrative awards, and then we also have research assistantships and teaching assistantships. Now, there are 4 positions available for forensic science for the fall. Those are teaching assistantships specifically in the forensic science program. So the students, at the moment, we don't have TAs teaching undergraduate courses. They are truly assistants to the professor in those courses. But you'd be working in a laboratory and maybe running a lab for students and things. And we also have positions in other departments, other TAs. So beyond the 4 positions in forensic science, we have other TAs in chemistry and biology, of course CJ, and some others that may be relevant for you. And then the administrative awards are open to all of our students. The TAs and all of our awards, or the majority of our awards, provide a 50% tuition reduction. So you're going to spend approximately, for 1 year of tuition, approximately just under $21,000 for 1 year of tuition. If you were to have a teaching assistantship, that cuts your costs in half to approximately $10,500 or so. You also will get an hourly wage for 200 hours of work per trimester. So for the 3 terms that you're here for the academic year and the following 2, you will have an hourly wage. Right now I believe it's 8 something an hour. It's around minimum wage. But you're getting that in addition to your half tuition discount. So it's a really nice way to make things affordable for you. You're also getting experience on the campus as a TA, so it is a great option to make things more affordable. And the administrative awards, which I'll talk about briefly in a few minutes, are also available for the same types of benefits for you in terms of tuition and hourly wage. Now, if you are going to apply for a TA, the TA positions are generally, several of them are considered guaranteed positions. Pretty much all of them in the forensic science program are guaranteed. So as you apply, you would be notified when your admission decision comes to you if you've been given a TA position. So if you've been given one, that, as you see, there's only 4 positions available. That's a prestigious offer. If that's something that you are interested in doing, definitely respond to us as soon as possible that you want the position and that you're coming here in the fall, because that will make sure that we reserve that position for you. If you plan to not attend for any reason, please be sure to let us know as soon as possible so that we know that we can provide that position to somebody else. Because there are only 4 positions, they are highly coveted by our forensic science students. Now, any unfilled TA positions, so if we have students that don't come for any reason, or if there are other positions available in other programs following May 1st, you can apply for those positions just like a job on campus. And Linda Kessler here in our graduate admissions office can help you through that process. We'll be happy to talk to you more about that. Some positions become available later in the year. For instance, because forensic science students graduate, or they at least finish their coursework at the end of March, if you do 5 trimesters full-time, then that remaining trimester, that position is unfilled. So oftentimes we may fill some positions on the campus, maybe not in forensic science, but in other areas that will fill in the April term. So if you don't get an assistantship right off the bat, that doesn't mean that you won't later on. We do have assistantships that get freed up in the winter and spring trimesters here as well. Now, with the faculty in forensic science, as I mentioned before, we're extremely proud of the fact the faculty, every single member of the forensic science faculty has been a practitioner, has worked in the field. They have worked in public safety. They've worked in some capacity related to what they're teaching you about in the classroom. We really feel strongly that our faculty not only be academically qualified, but also have practical professional experience, that they're bringing it in, they're showing you what's going on in the front lines. They're able to walk the talk. And that's really important for forensic science and what you're learning. And that ultimately makes you more marketable when you graduate. So Tim Palmbeck, I'm going to show you a bunch of the faculty members here. Tim Palmbeck is our chair. He's a retired Connecticut State Police major, and he was the head of the Connecticut State Crime Lab for over 10 years. And he's a consultant for crime scene reconstruction. He consults around the country in major crime scene reconstruction. So has some fantastic experience and is a great guy too. So he's somebody that you'll be working with a lot as your program coordinator coming in. We also have Dr. Howard Harris. He's a professor and he was director of the New York City Police Department Crime Lab. So has some great big city experience. He also worked in Monroe County in New York and the New York State Crime Laboratory Commission. He also worked as a chemist with Shell Oil. So he has some interesting corporate background. Of course, science background within the corporate industry. He also chaired the forensic department for a number of years, so he has a lot of great experience both on the academic side and the laboratory side. Dr. Fred Smith was the former director of forensic science at the University of Alabama. He also worked at AccuTox, which is a forensic urine drug testing facility. So he has some kind of more specific experience within forensic science and processing within the laboratory side as well. Dr. Virginia Maxwell is one of our very active forensic science faculty. She spent 15 years at the State of Connecticut Forensic Lab. She worked with Dr. Palmbach. She was the supervisor of the trace evidence section, so she's actually a great resource if you want to do any research in trace evidence. She also worked with the Department of National Defense in Canada, and she's originally from Europe, so she's got a lot of great international background as well. Dr. Mike Adamovitz, he's a supervisor of he was a supervisor of nuclear DNA at the Connecticut Forensic Lab. So we have a lot of folks that worked in the Connecticut Forensic Lab over the past several decades. So they have a lot of great experience within the processing units of the lab locally. And he also supervised the mitochondrial DNA forensic lab. So as you notice, even though we have a number of folks that have worked in the forensic lab in some capacity here in the state and also within New York State, as you saw with Dr. Harris, they all have very specialized experience in what they did in the lab. So that type of experience certainly helps you, particularly on the criminalistic side. Dr. Heather Coyle also worked in the DNA unit at the Forensic Science Laboratory, and she was a supervisor as well of the mitochondrial DNA unit there. We have some fantastic DNA technology, processing technology on the campus I'll tell you about momentarily. Dr. Kamrath, she worked as an instrument analysis trainer at Smith Detection, and she's also a consultant for trace evidence. So again, another trace evidence expert on the campus. And she also works in chemometrics, so again, very specialized background that you have there. And Peter Massey he was a former detective for the Hamden Police Department. He runs our, as I mentioned earlier, those crime scene courses on the weekends where you're coming in and processing a crime scene on the campus in either our virtual crime lab or kind of wet crime lab where you have the blood processing and things. So he's an expert on crime scene reconstruction and investigation and forensic photography and all those types of things. So you'd really get some great background from Pete Massey. We also have Peter Valentin. He's a crime scene expert as well and worked with the Western District, the Connecticut State Police Western District Major Crime Squad. So he has some great experience with with crime scene processing throughout the state here. We also have a number of adjunct faculty here. You see the whole list, a number of them working. We have a firearms investigator on our staff, another former lab director for the state of Connecticut. We have a gentleman from the Westchester Crime Lab, Connecticut State Police, the Yale Pathology Department within Yale New Haven Hospital. So a lot of really great experience that's across a wide variety of disciplines for you. So we're not just teaching a kind of one-track curriculum here. We've got faculty from all over the board, from all walks of life, from the legal side, from processing, from the laboratory side, from the police side. So you get all of those different perspectives throughout your curriculum while you're here. We also have, this is kind of our crown jewel in terms of our facilities on the campus. We just built a couple of years ago the brand new the Henry C. Lee Institute of Forensic Science on our campus. And you'll see on the left-hand side that's a photo of Dr. Lee in one of the lecture rooms in that facility speaking with a group of students there. And on the right side, that's the main lobby walking into the facility. And you'll see kind of on the left-hand side all of Dr. Lee's numerous awards from over the years that he donated to the center. And on the right side, part of the Learning Center is a forensic science museum. And that theater that I mentioned earlier with the trace evidence episodes, that's in the back. And we also have some mobile units in there that move around with various exhibits related to forensic science. And those glass rooms there house two of our virtual crime scene processing areas. And they actually process crime scenes on the walls using virtual touch technology. So it's really interesting stuff when you're going in there and processing a crime scene from a virtual level. It's very Mission Impossible-esque. So when you walk in there, you'll be able to see some of that going on. And we also have more of that kind of wet processing lab behind it, where they'd have a crime scene where you're doing hair analysis and blood splatter analysis and all that in a kind of true crime scene format, and then you're processing it back in the labs on the campus. We also do a variety of training programs in this facility, not only for our students, but for federal and international investigators. It's not unusual to walk in there and you've got 20 or 30 different investigators from around the world that are coming in and studying at the facility right alongside you as a student. So that's really what makes us unique, is that not only do we have a training facility like this for our students, but we're regarded not only nationally but internationally as a training facility for the top technology, the top skill sets, the top faculty to prepare you for a career, and also help those that are in the careers now become better investigators. So we're very proud of that. We also have some remote crime scene processing facilities there with webcam technology, satellite uplink technology. So Dr. Lee could be sitting with a group of students looking at a crime scene that's happening in California through satellite uplink technology that we have in that facility. We also have some of the latest technology that I mentioned earlier. One of my favorite ones that looks like a bike wheel with an extended metal apparatus coming off of it, but it's actually infrared ground penetration radar, and that's for determining the location of buried bodies. So it's kind of morbid, but it's very advanced and helpful technology for our police units, and our students get to use that right in our classroom. We also have some great forensic photography setups there as well. So now I've talked a lot about technology. Here's where I can give you a little bit of an insight on the types of things that we have on the campus. We have those new crime scene laboratories. In addition to that wet lab, we have the two virtual touchscreen rooms that you saw there in the photo before. We also have several evidence processing rooms. We have a DNA laboratory on our campus. We have several instrumentation rooms, firearms microscope. We do a lot of ballistics work on the campus. We also have access to a number of federal databases, and our students get to use these databases in terms of processing and learning how these databases work. So we have AFIS, which is the automated fingerprint identification system, so we have access to that. We also have video enhancements for processing video and things from, say, security and surveillance tapes. We also have access to IBIS, which is the integrated ballistics identification system, so very good for firearms processing. We also have SICAR, which is the shoe print identification system. So our students are looking at everything from hair and blood analysis, but they're also looking at a footprint and trying to figure out what kind of a shoe print is that coming from. So our students will be trying to determine, well, that's a size 11 Nike sneaker, or it's a Dockers dress shoe, or something like that. So you're using these systems to provide that information for you. We also have the PDQ database, access to the PDQ database, which is maintained through the FBI. It's a paint data query database for vehicles. So if you're trying to determine where a vehicle came from, the vehicle origins, type of vehicle, that kind of thing, you can use any kind of paint that may have been derived from a crime scene and process it through this database and determine what kind of car it might have been or where it came from. So it's really interesting technology that we have on the campus. So just a little bit about student life, and I know I'm going a bit long, but I want to make sure I'm giving you the full details of the program. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the box. We do use Blackboard, which many of you have probably used as an undergraduate student. And we have a forensic science majors community on there, so we provide all the required documentation things on there. You can also connect with students for roommates, find out some training. We also post all of our jobs on there, so you have an exclusive community on Blackboard just for you as a forensic science student to connect with our community on campus and get all the information that you need. Now, many of you are going to be relocating to the area, so we do provide an off-campus housing listing. We actually have a new partnership with a housing database that's very secure. So we make sure that students have access to that, and you can find housing that's convenient for you in a safe area. And if you ever have any questions at all about where you're going to be moving to or types of neighborhoods and things, we have everything from deep urban areas here to rural areas and everywhere in between. We'd be happy to answer any questions for you. So call our office and be sure to say, be sure to call us and ask us about certain neighborhoods or towns, and let us know where you feel comfortable. We'd be happy to kind of connect you with the right places so that you feel comfortable when you move to the area. We also have a number of clubs and organizations. We only listed the ones here that are directly relevant to you folks, but we have a lot of clubs and organizations on the campus. Our Graduate Student Council is our largest group on campus, and that represents all of our students. And particularly if you're coming from out of the area, they're a great organization, great group to get involved with. They do happy hour socials. They do trips to, say, New York City. They'll go to do ice skating, or they'll go see a Broadway show. They do ski trips up to Canada. They've done Boston Red Sox games. They've done Yankees games. They've done all types of things. They do these great trips that are funded through a fee that you pay each term, so it makes sense for you to take advantage of those opportunities we have on the campus for you. We also have a Graduate Forensic Science Club, which is affiliated with the American Association for Forensic Science. I believe I'm getting that right, AFES, which many of you have probably heard of. And they have an annual conference and also some regional conferences, and our students participate in all those conferences. And we have alumni gatherings at each of those, and you get to network with major professionals throughout the field. And you can learn about all the latest cutting-edge technology and best practices for the field, and network, and of course get jobs. So a lot of our students really get involved with that organization because it's a great professional resource for you in terms of landing your career. We also have an International Student Association and a number of other clubs on the campus. Now, Greater New Haven, I moved here myself from the Boston area. I did my undergraduate and graduate studies here at the university. And when I moved to the area, I didn't quite know what type of area it was. And for those of you that are relocating from other places, I think you'd really enjoy what New Haven has to offer because it's got the best of everything. We're only 5 minutes from the beach. You're close to the water, so if you like the water, that's close by. We're only about 5 to 10 minutes up to great hiking up in, for instance, Sleeping Giant State Park. Downtown New Haven has some of the best food and nightlife and museums and shopping and everything you can think of within close proximity to the campus. So all of these things, and if you're moving to the area, you'll be living right in the middle of one of these bustling areas with so many things to do. You'll never be bored. There's so much going on in the area, and you have the best of everything. We're also only about 2.5 hours from Boston, and we're about 1 hour and 40 minutes from New York City. And to get to New York City, we're at the northernmost point on the Metro North rail line, so you can jump right on the train and 1 hour and 40 minutes later be in downtown Manhattan. And we're also on Amtrak, and we have a local airport here in New Haven, so we're very accessible to virtually anywhere in the country. So it's really a great place to be if you're looking for somewhere that's vibrant and has a lot going on and has something for everyone. So I think you'd enjoy it here. So now just briefly a little bit about the application process. If you're thinking of applying, you definitely need to apply online by March 15th. Now March 15th is the deadline for a completed application, so not just submitting your application and then sending your other materials later. You have to get everything in, a completed application file in by March 15th. If you apply online, currently it's there's no application fee on the website. So if you were to apply on paper, there is a $75 fee. So if you apply online, there's certainly a lot more, it's a lot more flexible and cheaper for you to do that. And in addition to your application, you must submit 2 letters of recommendation. They have to be from a professional source, so certainly not mom and dad, but if you were to send us a recommendation from, say, an employer or a professor, we don't have a requirement on how many have to be a professor versus an employer. It doesn't matter. Just as long as there's somebody that can speak to your work ethic and things in a professional sense, then that's certainly okay. When you're completing the online application, you'll see that you can list your recommenders at the end of the application. What that allows you to do is you put the name and email address of each of your recommenders on the application, and our system will send them a secure message and allow them to log in securely to our system and provide not only kind of a checklist ranking for you, but also a narrative letter for you right into our system. That way you don't have to chase them for letters or have them mail into us. They can do them all electronically, and it saves you a lot of time and energy. We also require that you submit all official college transcripts. So even if you took a couple of classes at one college and then transferred, or you took them in the summer or something, we need all of your official college transcripts, and they have to be sent sealed to us. So they have to be officially sealed and sent to graduate admissions. And I'll note that on the next page. But make sure anything that you mail to us has graduate admissions on it. If it goes to just admissions, it often gets routed to our undergraduate office, and we don't want to delay your application. So be sure you have graduate admissions on there. We also require that you put together a personal statement if you can. It's on the application. You'll see it right on the online application, so it's very easy to complete. And for those of you applying for criminalistics, you have to take the GRE and supply those scores to us. You'll see at the end of the GRE you can indicate our code. Our code is 3663. You don't need to remember that, but you'll see there's a list at the end. You can just make sure that your scores get automatically forwarded from the Educational Testing Service right to graduate admissions. So that'll save you some time as well. Again, as I mentioned, submit all of anything that you're mailing to us. You have to submit to graduate admissions. So if you put admissions again, it'll get lost on you. The decisions, as I mentioned before, depends on when you apply and when the committee meets. So you may or may not get a decision right away, but don't panic. It just means that we have to wait for the committee to review your application. Now I see there's a question about what if you took college credit courses in high school. If they appear on a college transcript, we generally, yes, want them to come to us. Many of our students have taken college credit and then they end up going to that college, so that usually doesn't matter. Or your college, wherever you ended up, may have taken those courses as transfer credit. They have to appear on your transcript, so hopefully they're there. Generally, if you were awarded college credit by the place that you went, then if you can get that transcript, we need that transcript generally. In extenuating circumstances, we may be able to avoid that, but generally you have to send transcripts from every college that you attended, and that's to protect both you and us when you apply. Now, we want to make sure that we're transparent with you about the cost of tuition and fees. Currently, we don't have the actual cost for next year. Our board has not determined the tuition for the 13-14 year, which would start in September. So currently we're at $775 per credit hour. That may adjust up slightly for the fall, so I'm not sure exactly what that is over the course of time. But as I mentioned before, the cost of tuition for one academic year, if you're a full-time student, is just under $21,000. You figure 27 credits at $775 per credit hour puts you just under $21,000. And I'll talk about financial aid in a moment. Now, we're very transparent about our fees. Just so you know, every term that you're here, you're not paying thousands of dollars in fees. You'll see many schools will lump in extra fees that you don't know about right off the bat. We're telling you right now the only fee that you'll be paying is a $20 technology fee and a $25 graduate student council fee. So that's each term that you're here. So if you're taking 3 courses, you're going to pay tuition at $775 per credit for 3 courses, and then pay just that $45 technology and student council fee. So we're very straightforward, very transparent about that. Happy to answer any questions that you have regarding that. Now, the Stafford loans cover $20,500 per year. That's right around your total cost of tuition. In order to be eligible for Stafford loans, you must be a U.S. citizen or fall under the eligible non-citizen requirements. So if you're an international student, you generally will not be able to take Stafford loans. Now, the Stafford loans are advantageous because they're at a fixed low interest rate compared to most places, with the exception of maybe a special credit union that you might have access to. You're generally going to find a better interest rate for these loans than you would in a private loan, either through a credit card or through a bank. So Stafford loans are a good option to consider. Now, also, as I mentioned before, there's the graduate work program. The teaching assistantships are one facet of that. We also have research assistantships and administrative awards. The administrative awards are a little bit different from RAs and TAs because you would be working in an administrative capacity in an office on campus. And that may be, for instance, we have a forensic science student currently working as an administrative assistant in our graduate admissions office. We also have students working in, say, the marketing office or the dean's offices or the alumni development office or some of the academic offices or the tutoring center, for instance, or athletics. So we have a number of students that work across the campus. They get the same benefit. So you still get half of your tuition waived, and you get that hourly stipend for work that you complete, up to 200 hours per trimester. So you have that same benefit. There's roughly, between all three programs, so the administrative, the teaching, and the research assistantships, we have approximately 170 to 180 total positions on our campus. So in a given year, roughly 10% of our graduate students have an assistantship. So it is competitive. But if you keep your eyes open for those openings, and you can go onto our website and you'll see the list of assistantships available, and they change by term, but most of them are available in the fall. And our forensic science students have a very high placement rate because the students know, or those that are employing these administrative students in particular, know that forensic science students are very capable. They have a high academic prowess coming in because of the high requirements of admission. And they're known to have certain skills that we can certainly benefit from. So you have a pretty good placement opportunity as a forensic science student for these positions. If you needed to go above and beyond between the work program and Stafford loans, you can consider a Graduate Plus loan and, in some cases, a private loan. But as I mentioned, there is a number that you may have seen on our financial aid website that is a total cost of attendance. That's just an estimated total cost for you, so that you're aware that you might, if you're paying for rent and if you're paying for a car and other types of living expenses, that there is a number that financial aid works with in terms of federal guidelines to allow you to not borrow beyond a certain cap. And that's generally to protect you so that you're not going into debt with a lot of extra money. But the costs for you to attend to the university are roughly $21,000 for the entire year for full-time study. That's not including your books, so that might be a little bit extra certainly. But if you were to have one of these administrative awards or a TA or an RA, if you defer half of your cost there with that program, then you can take this full Stafford loan if you chose and use the difference between your tuition and what's left of your Stafford loan to pay for housing expenses. Many of our students coming from afar that need to relocate, and they have to pay rent and they have to pay for living expenses and things, oftentimes will take the full Stafford loan even if they have a graduate work program placement, and use that additional money to cover their other expenses while they're in school. So it does make it very affordable for you if you'd like to take that. There's a quick question here. Will it take about a month to receive an acceptance or non-acceptance letter? It depends on when you applied and when your completed application came in. They did one review that I'm aware of so far. There may have been a second one more recently. And then as we get close to the deadline in March, they'll do kind of a final review there. So depending on when the reviews happen, it could take that long. Depending on, you may have come in right after the latest review, and it may take several weeks up to a month to get something back to you. We certainly try to be as proactive as we can, but on the flip side, we also want to make sure that the admission committee has every opportunity to evaluate all of our applicants and give you the full benefit of the doubt when they're looking at your file to see if you're admittable to the program. So that time is a benefit for you. Oh, and you'll have to excuse that I put a financial aid information session here. I left that piece off, so you can skip that little yellow blurb on the right side of your screen. In order to apply for financial aid, and I'm talking more specifically the Stafford loan, you have to complete the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. It's available on their website. It's fafsa.gov, and there is a priority deadline. That priority deadline, March 1st. All that means is that it gives you priority processing on our end, so it helps you in getting the paperwork done a little bit more quickly. That doesn't mean that you can't get Stafford loans. We process Stafford loans all year long. Even if you applied in August for a Stafford loan, you're still going to be able to get it. You'll still be able to apply it to your tuition in the fall, so don't worry. However, I encourage you to consider completing the FAFSA now, regardless if you're coming to the university or not, if you're going to another school, whatever. Make sure that you get the FAFSA done sooner rather than later. That will help you in the long run in terms of making your decision and securing all of your aid. So that's really important. All right, so and there's the contact information for financial aid if you had any questions as well, and of course we can answer any questions you have. So I've given you a lot of information. Hopefully that gives you enough to at least start considering whether this would be a good option for you. I think it's certainly a fantastic program with a lot of opportunities for you. And we want to make sure that it's affordable for you, and we want to make sure that you're making the best decision in terms of the program and things that are going to make you successful in your own life and career. So one of the advantages we have over many of our competing institutions is that we're smaller, so we can give you a lot more personalized information and talk to you about your own circumstances and make sure that you're making the best decision for your own life and career, whatever that may be, in terms of financial or in terms of your career aspirations and goals. So we want to make sure that we're giving you that full time that you need. So feel free to ask us any questions or contact us. You have all of our contact information on the screen. I mentioned that Layla is your admissions counselor, so if you have questions for her or if you're going through the process and want to check your application status, you can contact her at any time. You also have my contact information there as well, and certainly you can talk to Dr. Tim Palmbach, who's your program advisor within the Forensic Science program. Now, we'll have a few minutes here. If you have any further questions, you can ask them in the questions box. There is a question here: how many credit hours in a year? In one academic year, if you're going to be a full-time student, you will be taking 27 credit hours, so 9 credit hours per term, and we have 3 terms, so those 3 trimesters, so 27 credit hours. And if you're thinking in terms of tuition, that's just under $21,000 for the full year in terms of your tuition costs, and including your fees for that matter. Just that wouldn't include your books. Your books certainly are dependent on what your advisors are asking for, and certainly where you buy your books. You don't have to buy them at the campus bookstore. Surely it's less expensive if you go to some other alternatives in many cases. Okay, there's students asking about the crime rate around the college, specifically Hartford. We're close to, I won't say an hour. It's about 45 minutes to Hartford, so we're a bit ways away from Hartford. Our closest metropolitan area is New Haven. We're actually not right in the middle of the city of New Haven, so that's a misconception for many students. New Haven is home to Yale University, so many of you are probably familiar with Yale, I'm sure. And New Haven's an urban area. There's about 100,000 people there, so it's a mid-sized city. And it's a city like any other. It has its more difficult areas. It has better areas than others. The areas where students go to are very well lit. There's a good police presence down there. There's a lot of what many of you may not know is that, including the University of New Haven, there are 6 colleges and universities here. So it's a big college town. We have tens of thousands of students from around the world that are studying here, and it's a great place to meet other people and socialize, and with all the nightlife and shopping and things, there's so many great things to do. So you can do all those things in very safe, well-lit areas, and students go out at night, and there's a lot of great nightlife around here. So it's generally not a concern. With that said, I certainly wouldn't say that there's never a concern. I mean, it's a city like any other. Where we're located here is in West Haven. We're on the hill overlooking the city of New Haven. It's a smaller city. Again, it has its good and bad areas like any city. We always tell students to use their common sense. But generally, we're one of the safer campuses in all of Connecticut. And I think it really helps that we're a public safety school. We actually have a police force on the campus. We don't have a security office. We have actual police on the campus because of the opportunities we want to provide to our CJ students. And we have all the CJ students here on the campus in fire science and forensic science and new emergency management students on the campus. So we have a good presence of students that are involved in those industries, and certainly faculty involved in those industries. So that helps too. And then depending on where you go, I mean, there's some very, very safe and rural and quiet areas, farmland not too far from here if you wanted that, or you have the downtown city and, of course, the beach area. So we always say common sense, but it's generally a pretty safe area in the immediate campus area, and certainly on campus is very safe. And going downtown using common sense and things, but for the most part, the areas that you would want to go to are very safe. We do encourage you, especially if you're moving to the area, definitely ask us, as I mentioned before, what neighborhoods you're looking at, or if you're not even sure where, definitely ask us where there's a good neighborhood to go to, or I'd be happy if you were here on campus. I've taken students around. I've driven students around the area just so you can get a feel for what's around here. We'd be happy to do that, or just happy to have you talk to somebody here and tell you about what it's like to live in the area and where you can live, and if you're going to have a car, or if you need to get to and from campus on the bus. We have two major bus lines that run by the campus, so you can use public transportation. And we have a U-Pass that many of our graduate students will get for free. We don't have a ton of them. We have a limited number, but we have enough for the people that need them. And if you need to get around the area, you can go on the bus system for free using the U-Pass. So that's a really great option for students if you don't have a car. And you can live somewhere, say in downtown West Haven, that's very accessible on the bus line. We even have shuttles that go to the local area that are run by UNH employees. Very safe, and they run at all different hours. And many of our classes are at night, so our students have access to those shuttles even in the evening. So it's really it's a great community. I mean, I've really been pleasantly surprised, because I personally came from a small town, and when I moved here to do my studies, both undergraduate and graduate, I was really impressed by the opportunities here for students to really get out and explore, and the social opportunities and things. And I think you'd all really enjoy it, but certainly ask questions if you have any about the area before you come. I see there's a question about a little bit more about the internship opportunities for the forensic students. The internship opportunities, as I mentioned, are only for students in the Advanced Investigation program or the Fire Science program. So you have to be in either of those two programs. If you're in the Criminalistics track, that's the lab-heavy program, and you need to be doing a thesis project as required by the program. Now, for Advanced Investigation students and Fire Science students, your internship opportunities are really not, they're not limited. They're only limited by your own thought process and what you're open to doing, I suppose. I know a student that worked it was for New Haven Police Department, and she was working with their investigative bureau, and so she was an AI student, and she would go out to crime scenes, and they'd process evidence and bring them back to the laboratory and do work there. So she had a very hands-on experience right here in town, so that worked out for her. Other students have opted to go to other cities, depending on where those internships are. And again, they're across the board. Some people are laboratories if they're more science insensitive. Some students are doing more crime scene work. There is some limitation as far as legal policy, and you have to be full-time in police to do certain things at a crime scene. But with internships, it's not overly limited in terms of what you do or where you work, for that matter. As long as you're open to putting the work in to securing that internship. Now, we are a smaller program. We have the faculty there to help you get in terms of being prepared for your placement and things. But our faculty, unfortunately, don't necessarily go out and get that internship for you. It's certainly part of the growing process, and part of preparing you as a student and getting you out there. And we have a lot of services to help students prepare a resume or prepare how to dress for success, and how to have a successful interview and those kinds of things. So we prepare you with all of that, and then we arm you with all the skills to go out and find an internship. And as I mentioned, many internships are brought to our department and posted, and all it is a matter of you securing an interview and going in there and nailing the interview. So if you can do that, that's really all you'll need to do. Otherwise, a lot of internships just get thrown at the department, and it's up to you to secure that opportunity. So the opportunities are endless, and I think that's one of the best things about this program, is because it's so well known, is that you can go virtually anywhere, and you're going to run into UNH alumni, you're going to run into UNH faculty across the country, and people are going to know the program and know the caliber of students here, and give you opportunities that other interns may or may not get, because they may not be in a notable program like what you're coming from here. So, and it's very easy for, when you're coming to a webinar like this, for instance, and you're talking to somebody who works for the institution like myself, it's very easy for you to say, oh, well, they're just spewing off the best things about the program. And in some regards, it's easy for me to do that about this program, because there are so many great things to say about it. But I encourage you to go out and do your research. Go to webinars of other schools. Go out and find out what their faculty are doing. Learn about the faculty experience. I think what you'll find is, when you look at the faculty experience of what we have compared to the faculty at other programs, we have substantially more hard experience in the field that we're teaching you about. That we're not just having faculty come out of an academic program and telling you about the theory behind doing everything. They're ones that not only know the theory, but they've also practiced it. They've been out on the crime scenes. They've collected evidence. They've worked in the laboratories. They've done all of this firsthand, so that they're able to give you that real experience in the classroom, whether you're sitting in a lecture or you're practicing in our crime scene training facilities or you're doing an internship. You're getting all this fantastic background from people that have done it. And that's really what I'll sell our program over anything else. So do your research, take a look at the other programs out there and see what they offer, and then take a look at ours and see how they measure up. And I guarantee you'll come back to us and be pretty impressed by the types of preparation that we're going to provide for you as a forensic science student here at the University of New Haven. Are there any further questions at all? I know we've gone a little bit over time. I really appreciate most of you stayed the whole time, and I appreciate your time this afternoon. We hope this was helpful. And we'll probably ask you, following the webinar, just tell us a little bit about your experience today, and hope you got all the information that you need. But as you see on the screen, you've got our contact information. Hopefully you've taken it down. We will provide this webinar or the PowerPoint presentation and recording up on the web either later this afternoon or tomorrow. And so you can follow up and read up on this at any time that you need it. But if you have any questions at all, we certainly welcome them at any time. You know, we're here throughout the week, and if you're coming from afar and you have an opportunity to come visit campus, we'd love to have you here. We can give you a tour, have you meet with the faculty, even sit in on a class if you'd like. And we're willing to do that most any day of the week. Even if you can only come on a Saturday or something, we're happy to try to accommodate you as best as we can. So it looks like we've wrapped up with all the questions, so feel free to let us know if you have any further questions. Otherwise, thanks so much for attending today, and we hope you have a great afternoon. So thanks so much.